Hello everybody, welcome to WhatCulture Gaming. My name is Rich and I'm joined by Josh. I don't know which side he's going to be on, but he's going to be somewhere.
Hello Rich, yeah. It's always a mystery. I don't know whether I'm going to be on the left or whether I'm going to be on the right. I don't know where to point to, which is a huge problem.
This is where Ozzy's going to start swapping us over for the sheer hell of it. But we're here with some news for you all today. Now you might remember a while ago we reported on apparently Mick Gordon being screwed over by Bethesda when it came to the Doom Eternal original soundtrack, and as of last night, the lead producer, Marty Stratton from id Software, lovely bloke, went on Reddit and he posted a big open letter, very, very long letter, detailing everything that happened with the original soundtrack. Now, if you want a quick catch-up in case you don't know, the soundtrack was delayed by almost a month. We ended up getting the soundtrack on the 19th of April, and the game released on the 20th of March when we were originally supposedly going to get the soundtrack. And when it released, it was discovered that Mick Gordon only actually mixed about 7 or 8 of the tracks of the entire soundtrack himself. The rest of it had been done in-house at id, and a lot of people got very, very annoyed at the fact that Mick Gordon apparently got screwed out of the soundtrack mixing final cut, as it were. But as it transpires through this letter from Marty Stratton, that's really, really not the case. I'm going to pass this over to Mr. Josh Brown. He's the one with all the quotes.
Yes, well, like you mentioned, this all stemmed from Mick Gordon essentially telling people on social media that his working relationship with id Software and on the Doom franchise was essentially over. And we all started wondering why. Why has he only mixed so many of the tracks on the OST? What's going on? Why have they handed off to someone else? And obviously we all kind of assumed that Mick was the good guy in this, that Mick was, the artist kind of, trampled under the boot of the marketing bigwigs or whatever. Yeah. But now, like you said, Marty Stratton has posted his side of the story and id's side of the story on the official Doom Reddit, which has kind of gone into detail and essentially explained everything, at least from their perspective. And it doesn't sound quite as cut and dry as we first thought. So they opened the post by saying, quote, "We've enjoyed an amazingly open and honest relationship with our fans, so given your passion on this topic and the depth of misunderstanding, I'm compelled to present the entire story." And the entire story is lengthy, so we'll just go through the cliff notes here. Yep. But essentially, Mick Gordon was tasked with creating the OST for Doom that was supposed to, like you said, ship with the collector's edition of Doom Eternal in mid-March. However, when it came time to delivering the tracks for the deadline, the 12 tracks that he was contracted for, he needed more time. It was way more of a heftier task than he first envisioned, because it wasn't simply taking, recordings and putting them on, a soundtrack. The way that the music was created for Doom was far more dynamic and far more in kind of fragments rather than actual songs. So a lot of stuff, it was a lot of work, a lot of things needed to be remixed. So he needed an extension, and apparently id was cool with that. They said, look, you've asked for 4 weeks, we'll give you 6. We'll delay the soundtrack and the collector's edition. We'll tell everyone it'll be fine. You'll still get your money. But that's when things started getting a little bit problematic, because as the new date was coming into a head, essentially, it seemed as though Mick wasn't going to be able to deliver the track still. So at that time, this is when id Software kind of went and got their backup plan. Their backup plan was that the lead audio designer and engineer called Chad was making his own version of the OST alongside Mick in case Mick couldn't deliver it. And apparently this was all communicated to Mick Gordon, who said, you know what, fine, this is a lot of work. If you have to, this is okay. We'll mesh my tracks with the tracks that you're making and we'll get to put it out. However, again, that didn't go to plan, because it doesn't seem like Mick has communicated this with his fans, or at least explained this in his side of the story, which is a huge shame and has led to a lot of hate actually being sent to this lead audio designer, which absolutely sucks.
It sucks, it's awful.
Yeah, he was essentially just told, we need this backup plan, we need you to do this job. It's not like he's been infringing on, Mick Gordon's work or anything like that, at least intentionally. He's not been kind of changing the source material around. He's just taken the tracks that are already in the game and remixed them together to form these proper full songs, which, It sucks essentially, man. Like it's a big old ball of drama that I did not expect to see come out of Doom Eternal.
No.
And by the sounds of things, at the end of this, they say that, quote, "As for the immediate future, we are at the point of moving on and won't be working with Mick on the DLC we currently have in production. As I mentioned, his music is incredible. He is a rare talent, and I hope he wins many awards for his contribution to Doom Eternal at the end of the year." So it sounds like this is them essentially breaking up, at least for the DLC, and most likely for the inevitable Doom Eternal sequel.
Yeah, it's a real shame because obviously the huge part of Doom and Doom Eternal was the soundtrack. You know, Scott and I were like just as excited with just the soundtrack as we were for the actual game itself. So to see Mick not working on the DLC, because I think we're getting at least 2 DLC packs for Doom Eternal based on the like the collector's edition season pass thing. To see him not come back for that is a real shame, but it's good to see that the people who have been very critical of Bethesda and id. It's not even Bethesda. It's id and ZeniMax who will be sorting this out most likely. They've all changed their tune. Thankfully, they're not sitting on their side of we're going to side with Mick here. Because once Marty had been, Marty Stratton and Hugo Martin are always like very respected people within the industry. So if they say that this is what's happening, I'm inclined to believe them. So to see Mick sort of he's thrown himself into this hole. He's shot himself in the foot by lying and putting id as the bad guys when it was just Chad Mossholder doing his job. And he's done, I will say, because I've got the soundtrack, he's done an incredible job for what he has to play with. Like, obviously, we don't know what those teeny tiny chunks of soundtrack that Mick sends over to id to put into the game, like how big they are. So the fact this audio designer's gone through and made this humongous soundtrack, it's really big. It's like 4 hours long, the soundtrack.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's over 50 tracks or something like that. Yeah, and, it's ridiculous.
Like Chad's done an incredible job on it, so I've got to give him all the praise on that. And then I'll send Osley an image to put on the video of the track listing, because on the tracks they have top billed Mick Gordon on every single track, because then they're like, look, you're the composer. Like I think it'd have been very, very mature with this whole thing. They could have just gone, do you know what? We'll just wash our hands of you and we'll just get rid of him and we'll pretend he never worked on the game. They have not done that. They are still honouring the incredible work he has done up to this point. So he's top billing on all the tracks, but Chad Mossholder is a supporting artist on all the tracks that he mixed. And like I said, there are only, let me have a look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 tracks that Mick Gordon mixed himself out of a soundtrack of like 50. So Chad has done amazing work to pick these things up, and some of the best tracks in the soundtrack are the ones that Chad mixed. It's funny
you mention that, because when it got to the deadline and Mick submitted his songs, he only submitted 9 of the 12 according to this report. And apparently the majority of those, 8 of those 9, were just kind of more the ambient tracks. There was only one that is described as, one of the combat tracks, the heavier kind of music that accompanies the combat in the game. There was only one of those, so it is kind of impressive that Chad has been able to take these tracks from the game's files, not even from the source material, as the report mentions that, Mick essentially kept those because he wanted to do them properly, and he's kind of cobbled together this soundtrack that still does, like you say, sound awesome and kind of hold up. Yeah,
it's still brilliant.
It's not like the original masters or anything, but at the same time, by the sounds of this report, that was going to be a huge amount of work on Mick Gordon's part that might not have ever materialized anyway, especially, certainly not in the immediate future.
Yeah. And I mean, it's intriguing to see whether they fix some kind of relationship between the two. As they say, they're not working with Mick for the DLCs. They may bring him back for other titles. I mean, he has got fingers in Bethesda pies because he does the soundtracks for the Wolfenstein games as well. So whether he'll be coming back for those, obviously they're with Machine Games, not id, but it's still under Bethesda, it's still under ZeniMax. Like whether that's going to be Bethesda as a publisher or ZeniMax as a parent, thinking, do you know what, if this is how it's going to be with you. Admittedly, like his work on Wolfenstein's music is nowhere near as like revered as his work on Doom. That's a given. But whether they look at this and go, do you know what? If you're going to be difficult to work with, if you're going to be poop stirring, like you have been for the past couple of weeks, then should they work with him? And like I said, as Marty said, he's an incredible talent. His music is phenomenal. Like I said, the Doom as a game is held alongside its soundtrack almost like level footing. They're such big deals. Will Bethesda risk doing Doom without him? Or, are they right to say, do you know what, we're going to wash our hands of you? As much as it pains me to say it, I think they're right with what they're doing. And that sucks. As a huge Doom fan, it sucks that I agree with the direction they've taken, but it just sounds like Mick has been making things difficult for himself and for id and for the fans. Like, I get that his work is phenomenal. I get that completely. But if he's going to be a pain to work with and he's going to be a potential liability to the public perception of the company and even down to their employees, I dread to think to think what Chad feels like right now. Like, I don't know how far Doom fans have gone to make his life miserable. Like, you know what things are like when people get like witch hunted on the internet. It sucks.
100%. I think that sounds
Chad
like
has
the
been
final straw.
the center of that, especially since Mick's been spreading misinformation as to how things have actually gone.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I do think that's the final straw for the whole kind of relationship. The fact that the severity of the hate that the team at id, like individuals at id, have been getting. That's kind of why this post was made. They even have a quote later on where Marty says, in reply to one fan, Mick said that he didn't mix those and wouldn't have done that. That and a couple of other simple messages distancing from the realities and truths I've just outlined has generated unnecessary speculation and judgment and led some to vilify and attack an id employee who had simply stepped up to the request of delivering a more comprehensive OST. And I think that is the crux of the problem. It's not that Mick has sort of ordered fans to go out and attack employees, but it's the fact that it's come to this at all, which proves kind of like that relationship has soured and perhaps it's a bit too toxic. But yeah, like you said, like obviously his music is such an integral part of Doom, and although he works with Bethesda on a wider level, it is the soundtrack of Doom, a franchise in general, that has kind of allowed the reboot franchise to carve its own identity, alongside the gameplay as well. So it will be a huge miss, but yeah, it just feels like one of those messy breakups. It almost feels like we're reporting on kind of like drama or YouTube drama or something like that, because it feels like quite weirdly personal, but it is nice that at least Marty has been open with the fans and kind of given this comprehensive, frank, detailed report. And you know what, like Mick probably has his own side that we'll hear about soon as well. So
yeah, I mean, like I said, they've been very mature about it. They've said, that if he's wanting to continue working on doing the Mick cut, then he can do, and if anything, they're going to happily get him to do so, because if they can release another album with Doom Eternal the Mick cut and charge another $10 for it, then why not? And I'll buy it. I will buy it.
Rich, I'm getting like flashes of release the Mick cut trending on Twitter now.
I mean, I'm really surprised release the Mick cut wasn't trending like straight away, but it seems to me they're still willing to do that because again, they know how important this is to the identity of the game, the fans, what the fans love. Hence why they gave him 6 extra weeks post-release to get the soundtrack done. They know how much they care about this. So if anything, there should be so much praise going to id, going to Bethesda Publishing or to ZeniMax, whoever it goes to, and it goes above id, because I know that id won't get final say over that sort of thing. But you've got to give them credit for giving Mick that time. If Mick was there, fannying around, I get that he really cares about his craft. But at the end of the day, he's professional. He's got deadlines.
Yes.
You have to meet them. Because by the sounds of things, the fact that he had 6 extra weeks onto however long he's been working on the soundtrack for, and he delivered 11 tracks of his own, it's like, I get that they're very well curated, and one of the only thing they fear is you is like the main theme of the game, and that's one of the combat tracks that he actually mixed himself. And yeah, it is sublime, but I don't think the rest of the soundtrack is audibly suffering compared to the rest of it. If you look at the waveforms, which people did, which is how they discovered it wasn't Mick's cut, it's not that bad.
Totally agree.
I get it as an audio file. It's not amazing, but when this releases on Spotify, go and stream the hell out of it. You're gonna absolutely love the new soundtrack. It's so good.
It's the classic mix of, just business realities versus kind of unlimited artistic achievement. And it does sound, if this is all true, that id kind of gave it their fair shake, gave gave that creative freedom out there, and then kind of eventually just had to come down and be like, look, we promised the fans something, we've got this thing up for pre-order, we've already delayed it once, we can't do it again, which I think, you know what, for as much as we kind of rag on Bethesda and, you know, big companies sometimes, I think that sounds quite fair.
And I think that's a good direction to see ZeniMax and Bethesda go in if they really like showing that they do care, they're willing to give things time, because, you know, they've been screwed over by lack of time in the past. Cough, cough, Fallout 76. So if they're willing to give things time in the future, then that's great. It's just hope that the contributing artists actually work with those deadlines. So, you know, I want to see a future where there's a lovely picture of Hugo, Marty, and Mick just all together having a nice hug, saying we're getting the band back together. Mick's gonna actually do as he's told this time, and it's gonna be great. That will be amazing. But, you know, we'll have to see how things go from there. But what do you all think in the comments below? Are you quite shocked by this news? Which side do you stand on? Do you stand on the side of id, Bethesda, and ZeniMax, or are you still standing by what Mick has said? Again, I'll put a link in the description to the open letter on Reddit so you can read it all yourself. It is a very interesting read to see how things have gone, and let us know in the comments what you think about all of this. But until then, I have been Rich. Go and listen to the Doom Eternal soundtrack when it releases on Spotify. I'm sure you'll see it all over Twitter when it does. And I have been joined by Mr. Josh Brown.
Hello, Rich. I'm also, you know, just deeply awaiting that coming on Spotify, counting the days until it eventually happens.
I'm just playing it through my VLC media player because that's all I can do at the moment. But it's a good enough means to get me through the day. It gets me nice and hyped for my next section on Doom Eternal, because I'm still playing it religiously. But thank you all very much for watching. Take care of yourselves, and we will see you very soon.
Bye.
Bye.